There comes a moment in every awakened life when the world no longer looks the way it once did. The smiles feel rehearsed, the words feel hollow, and the people you once trusted with your heart suddenly feel unfamiliar. This is not paranoia, this is perception. Because awakening does not begin by seeing angels, it begins by recognizing what drains your light. Not all demons have horns. Some have familiar voices. Some sit at your dinner table. Some call you by your childhood name. They do not come to attack you openly. They come to confuse you, to weaken you, to slowly pull you back into sleep. And the most dangerous part is this: they rarely know what they are. Today is not about fear, accusation, or rejection. Today is about clarity, about learning to see energy instead of appearances, patterns instead of promises, and truth instead of comfort. Because once your heart awakens, you can no longer afford blindness, and the moment you can spot what feeds on your light is the moment you reclaim your power. How awakened awareness reveals hidden energies in close relationships. The moment awareness awakens, it does not announce itself with noise. It arrives quietly, like a shift in the air. Suddenly, you begin to notice how you feel after certain conversations, how your energy changes in certain rooms, how your chest tightens around certain people, even when nothing wrong is being said. This is where true perception begins, not in judgment, but in sensation. Awakened awareness does not look for evil faces or dramatic betrayals. It observes subtle patterns. It notices who listens only to respond, who diminishes your dreams with polite smiles, who grows uncomfortable when you grow confident. These are not coincidences. They are signals. When your consciousness rises, it becomes sensitive to frequency, and frequency never lies even when words do. You may realize that some people close to you feel threatened by your clarity, not because they hate you, but because your light exposes the parts of themselves they have buried. This exposure creates resistance. Resistance shows as sarcasm disguised as humor, concern disguised as control, advice disguised as love. Awakened awareness recognizes that not everyone who cares about you is capable of supporting who you are becoming. Some only know how to love the version of you that stayed small, quiet, agreeable. And when you outgrow that version, their energy shifts. They may not attack you, but they subtly pull you back, reminding you of your past, your mistakes, your limits, because your evolution challenges their comfort. This awareness also reveals a deeper truth. Demons, in a symbolic sense, are not external monsters, but unconscious patterns operating through people who have not faced their own shadows. An awakened heart sees that darkness is often unconsciousness, not cruelty. People act as vessels for fear, envy, insecurity, and unhealed pain, and these energies move through relationships like invisible currents. You begin to sense who feeds on chaos, who thrives on drama, who feels alive only when others are unstable. These people are not evil, they are asleep. But sleep can still harm the awake. As awareness deepens, you stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and start asking, "How does this interaction affect my inner state?" You notice who leaves you grounded and who leaves you anxious, who expands your breath and who compresses it. This is the language of awakening. It speaks through the body before the mind catches up. It teaches you that closeness does not equal alignment, and blood does not guarantee safety. Some of the strongest drains come from those who know your vulnerabilities best. This realization is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to liberate you. Awareness does not demand confrontation. It demands discernment. You do not need to accuse, expose, or reject. Seeing is enough. Once you see clearly, you naturally adjust your boundaries, your access, your emotional investment. And the more you honor what your awareness reveals, the less power unconscious energies have over you. Because light does not fight darkness, it simply makes it visible. The difference between love that supports growth and presence that drains the soul. Love has a frequency, and so does attachment. At first glance, they look identical. Both show up as care, presence, concern, and closeness. But awakened awareness learns to feel the difference. Love that supports growth expands you. It makes you breathe deeper, stand taller, and speak more honestly. Presence that drains you does the opposite. It contracts you slowly, subtly, so quietly that you often blame yourself for the heaviness you feel. This is why many people stay confused for years, mistaking familiarity for nourishment and loyalty for alignment. Supportive love does not panic when you change. It does not feel threatened by your evolution. When you step into clarity, purpose, or inner strength, real love adjusts, learns, and walks beside you, even if it does not fully understand your path. Draining presence, however, becomes uneasy the moment you stop playing your old role. It may not openly oppose you. Instead, it questions your decisions repeatedly, highlights risks over possibilities, and frames doubt as wisdom. The words sound reasonable, even caring, but the energy underneath feels heavy. After these interactions, you feel tired rather than inspired, foggy rather than focused, smaller rather than empowered. An awakened heart notices patterns, not isolated moments. Everyone has bad days. Everyone can be insecure sometimes. The difference lies in consistency. Supportive love has a stabilizing effect over time. Even during conflict, it aims toward understanding. Draining presence keeps you emotionally busy, always explaining yourself, defending your growth, or feeling guilty for choosing yourself. You may notice that your joy triggers discomfort in them, that your silence makes them anxious, that your independence feels like abandonment to them. This is not love asking to connect. It is attachment fearing loss of control. Another subtle sign appears in how space is handled. Love respects distance when distance is needed for growth. It trusts that connection does not disappear just because silence appears. Draining presence demands constant access, your time, your emotional labor, your attention. When you pull back to realign, it interprets your boundaries as rejection. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to negotiate your peace just to keep the relationship calm. This is where the drain becomes dangerous, because it trains you to associate self-respect with guilt. Awakened awareness also recognizes how your body responds. Around supportive love, your nervous system softens. You feel safe being unfinished, uncertain, or vulnerable. Around draining presence, your body stays alert. Your jaw tightens, your thoughts race. You rehearse conversations before having them. This is not intuition being dramatic, it is intelligence communicating through sensation. The body knows when love is flowing and when energy is being extracted. Understanding this difference is not about cutting people off or labeling them as enemies. It is about honesty. Some people love you, but not in a way that nourishes who you are becoming. Some connections were meant to teach you endurance, not expansion. When you can tell the difference between love that feeds your soul and presence that slowly consumes it, you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of harmony. And that recognition alone begins to restore the strength you once gave away. Behavioral and energetic signs of unconscious. Destructive influence rarely announces itself loudly. It does not storm into your life declaring harmful intentions. Instead, it moves quietly through behaviors that seem ordinary, even justified. This is why awakened perception focuses less on dramatic acts and more on repetition. One of the first signs is emotional destabilization. After interacting with certain people, you feel unsettled without knowing why. Your thoughts loop. Your confidence dips. Your inner clarity becomes clouded. Nothing specific may have happened, yet something essential feels disturbed. This is not weakness, it is sensitivity recognizing interference. Another signal appears in how truth is handled. People operating from unconscious, destructive patterns often distort reality without realizing it. They minimize your experiences, reframe your pain as exaggeration, or subtly shift blame, so you begin doubting your own perception. Conversations leave you questioning yourself more than before. You replay words in your mind, wondering if you misunderstood, if you were too sensitive, if you imagined the discomfort. Over time, this erosion of self-trust becomes one of the most damaging effects, because it disconnects you from your own inner authority. Pay attention also to how growth is received. When you move toward healing, discipline, or self-respect, destructive influence reacts with discomfort. Sometimes it shows as mockery masked as humor. Sometimes as concern that sounds loving but discourages change. Sometimes as sudden distance or passive resistance. The common thread is this: your elevation disrupts their internal balance. Without awareness, they attempt to restore equilibrium by pulling you back into familiar patterns where they feel safe. This is not always malicious. Often it is unconscious fear expressing itself through behavior. Energy is also revealed through dependency dynamics. Destructive influence thrives on emotional reliance. These individuals may consistently position themselves as victims. Crises follow them endlessly, and your role becomes that of rescuer, listener, fixer. While compassion is natural, imbalance is not. You begin carry emotional weight that does not belong to you. Your needs shrink while theirs dominate the space. And when you try to step back, guilt is used as a leash. This pattern drains vitality because it replaces mutual exchange with silent extraction. Observe how boundaries are treated. Unconscious destructive energy resists limits. When you say no, it hears rejection. When you ask for space, it assumes abandonment. Your boundaries trigger emotional reactions rather than respect. Over time, you may stop setting them altogether just to avoid conflict. This is how influence deepens not through force, but through your gradual self-silencing. The most telling sign is the absence of accountability. When harm is addressed, it is deflected, justified, or denied. Apologies feel empty or conditional. Growth is promised but never embodied. Awareness notices not what is said, but what changes. When behavior remains the same despite repeated understanding, the pattern has revealed itself. Seeing these signs is not about labeling people as evil. It is about recognizing when unconscious patterns are operating through them. So you no longer mistake familiarity for safety or endurance for love. Why demons often appear as familiarity, not danger. Danger rarely feels dangerous at first. It feels warm, known, even comforting. This is why the most disruptive influences in a person's life are often not strangers, but those wrapped in familiarity. The mind is trained to associate threat with the unknown, yet awakened perception understands a deeper paradox. What you know best has the easiest access to you. Familiarity disarms discernment. It softens your boundaries. It convinces you that what feels uncomfortable must be your fault, because surely someone you love would never mean harm. This is how influence hides in plain sight. When something wears the face of history, memory steps in to defend it. You remember who they used to be, how they once supported you, the moments of closeness that shaped your bond. These memories become filters through which current behavior is excused. You minimize patterns because you focus on isolated moments of kindness. You tolerate emotional erosion because the connection feels irreplaceable. Familiarity becomes a shield that protects the pattern from being questioned. And awareness is delayed not by ignorance, but by loyalty. Another reason danger disguises itself as familiarity is because it mirrors you. Those closest to you know your language, your fears, your wounds, your dreams. They know exactly how to reach you, how to calm you, how to provoke you, and how to keep you engaged. This intimacy allows influence to operate without force. A single word can destabilize you. A subtle look can trigger doubt. Their approval feels essential, and their disapproval feels threatening. What appears as closeness becomes leverage. And without awareness, you surrender power simply by staying emotionally available. Familiarity also breeds obligation. Society teaches you that family must be tolerated, that long relationships must be preserved, that leaving what is known is betrayal. These beliefs keep people bound to harmful dynamics long after growth demands distance. Awakened awareness sees that not all bonds are meant to be lifelong. Some exist to teach lessons, not to provide shelter. When you remain in a connection out of obligation rather than resonance, the cost is paid by your inner peace. There is also comfort in predictability, even when it hurts. Familiar pain feels safer than unknown freedom. The nervous system prefers what it recognizes, so it resists change even when change is necessary. This is why people return to the same emotional patterns again and again, confusing intensity with love and chaos with connection. Familiarity becomes addictive, and addiction rarely feels like danger, it feels like home. Awakened perception breaks this illusion by shifting the question. Instead of asking who someone is to you, it asks who you become around them. Do you expand or contract? Do you speak freely or carefully? Do you feel supported or monitored? These answers cut through memory and obligation. They reveal that danger does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers your name in a voice you trust. And that is why recognizing it requires courage, not fear, and clarity, not blame. Protecting your light without hatred, guilt, or emotional warfare. Protection is often misunderstood as aggression. Many believe that to guard their light, they must harden their heart, cut people off dramatically, or declare emotional war. But awakened awareness chooses a different path. True protection is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek validation. It begins internally. The moment you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, you realize that your peace does not need permission, and your clarity does not require agreement. This is where power returns without noise, without guilt. The first layer of protection is energetic honesty. You stop forcing warmth where it no longer flows naturally. You stop offering access where respect is absent. This does not mean hatred. It means alignment. You can care without consuming yourself. You can love without lowering your frequency. Awakened hearts understand that compassion without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. So instead of confronting every behavior, you adjust your proximity. You speak less. You reveal less. You give less emotional fuel to patterns that thrive on reaction. Silence, when chosen consciously, becomes a shield. Guilt is often the final chain that keeps people exposed. The fear of being seen as cold, selfish, or ungrateful keeps many trapped in draining dynamics. But awakened protection reframes guilt as a signal, not a command. Feeling guilty does not mean you are wrong. It often means you are changing. When you stop overgiving, those who benefited from your depletion will feel discomfort. This discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not here to remain accessible to what harms you just to preserve an image of kindness. Another powerful form of protection is neutrality. Not every truth needs to be spoken to every person. Not every realization needs to be shared. When you stop trying to wake others, you conserve immense energy. You realize that some people are not meant to understand you. They are meant to be experienced from a distance. This does not require bitterness. It requires maturity. Neutrality removes hooks. Without emotional charge, destructive patterns lose interest because there is nothing left to feed on. Protection also means strengthening your inner foundation. The more grounded you are, the less vulnerable you become. You begin prioritizing practices that regulate your nervous system, sharpen your intuition, and restore your sense of self. Rest becomes sacred. Solitude becomes medicine. Your inner world becomes so stable that external chaos can no longer penetrate it easily. This is not escape. It is integration. When your center is strong, influence loses its grip. Ultimately, protecting your light is not about building walls. It is about becoming rooted. Rooted people do not chase, argue, or defend. They stand. And in that stillness, it becomes clear who can meet you there and who cannot. And you allow that truth to rearrange your relationships naturally without hatred, without drama, without war. Because the most powerful boundary is the one you no longer have to explain.